Hello and welcome to Geek First Sidequest, your weekly stop for video game news, reviews, and more here on the Geek First Podcast Network. I'm your host, Adam Harcaster, Dylan Moss, and I have with me the passenger, Kirklin Patzer. How you doing on this fine afternoon? I know you just had a nice BLT with the perfect crispiness, so I'm sure you're doing pretty good.
Yes, if it was The Sims and you could see like my elation meter, like my happiness bar, it's pretty high right now after having a really tasty sandwich. And yeah, I'm excited to be here. I chose the name Passenger because the main topic is the Fire Emblem Engage review, and I haven't played it, but I love to be a passenger and just come along with you on this journey. And yeah, so happy to be here. So thanks for having me.
I'm very excited for this episode. Yeah, so as you mentioned, the main topic for today is Fire Emblem Engage. I have been playing that about like 15 hours in or something like that, so I've got a good amount of time on it. We're going to talk all about that, but we have a couple other topics. We're going to talk about Marvel's Avengers, which had a big announcement recently, and then just talk about some of the games we've been playing. So it should be a pretty chill episode here, but just a few plugs. One, I recently did a Fire Emblem history / ranking. I ranked all the games, and then I kind of, in that episode, I also did a bit of a history, just talking through where the series started and kind of how it evolved gameplay-wise, story-wise, and stuff like that before the ranking. So I think for people who maybe only know a little bit about Fire Emblem, or a lot of people jumped on with either Awakening or even later with Three Houses and stuff, and they've maybe missed a bunch of the games. So I think it's probably pretty good to go back and listen to that if you're curious, because obviously I won't go into all that detail today. I'm just going to be talking about Engage mostly. So check that out. We're also doing weekly reviews of The Last of Us TV show. So the second episode's out now. We covered that. I'm very excited this week. Golden Geeks is happening, which is just one of my favorite casts. I've been listening to a little bit of our previous year's ones. So I always like to do that, get a little hyped, and just go back and listen to some of our crazy thoughts from years ago and our reasonings for things, and just like debates I totally forgot we had. Like, very fun to go back and listen to those, even though the audio quality is quite savage. And then next week, so on the 25th, a couple days from now, Xbox is doing a showcase where they're going to show off some stuff, including Kirkland, probably that Redfall release date, which we desperately need as we're planning this retrospective. And so yeah, that'll be next week's episode. Me and Taylor are going to cover that. And then Kirkland, once again, me and you are meeting up just a day from now to do a newscast on the main feeds there. So that's kind of all the big stuff going on. Anything else you would like to shout out here, Kirkland?
No, I think you hit everything there. Yeah, lots of reviews, retros, X-Men, all that fun jazz. So yeah, it's good times.
Good stuff. Yeah, which, shouts to go join our Patreon to get episodes early and ad-free. For example, the Arcane retrospective will probably, like, some of those first couple episodes will probably be at least a couple months early on there. So that's pretty exciting. And then also, yeah, as I mentioned, Golden Geeks coming up. So we're going to do all these nominations. But if you want to vote on what you think the best movie is, who the best actor was, what the best scene was, you got to make sure you join that Patreon so you have a say in that. And then if the votes, if let's say the votes come out and you don't like it, you can't be salty unless you're like actually on the Patreon and then your vote didn't go through or something like that. But I don't know, you got to join, check it out. And then join the Discord, hang out with us over in there. And I think that's pretty much it. So with that, let's just jump into just a couple opening topics before Fire Emblem. Talk about some of the games we've been playing. I really don't have much because when me and you did that episode when we came back from winter break, and I just played a bunch of different stuff, and I was still like just reeling off of Game of the Year, things like that. So January, I've kind of it's been my detox month. I've just been going in like chill mode, not really playing many new things. With the exception of I've played through Arx Vitalis now, so I'm getting ready for the retrospective, and I kind of wanted to beat that before getting into Fire Emblem. So that's really all I've been playing, but I don't really want to talk about that now. I'm going to save that for the podcast. Yeah. So yeah, I'm just going to throw over to you. What have you been playing lately?
Yeah, so I think it was last weekend, Shay and I jumped into Mario Kart. We haven't played that in a little while. Nice. We got the DLC, the kart pack, the wave,
the booster,
packs, whatever the hell it's called.
Pass? Yeah,
whatever
booster
it is.
something, booster, and then other random words.
Yeah, and like, how many are out now? Because I feel like it had been a while since I had played the just Mario Kart in general. But I think we played the initial pack when it first came out, and then is there just 2 out?
Well,
now,
I think each update they've done, I guess, 2 Grand Prix, so 8 courses, and I think the one you're talking about is like the third one. So 24-ish, maybe
Okay.
32. I can't remember exactly where we're at now, but yeah, a ton of new stuff, especially compare that to like how much is in the base game. It's like they're pretty much doubling that
Yeah.
and they're already like halfway through it. It's pretty insane.
Oh, it's crazy. Yeah. So we jump back into that, like not even thinking about those like new booster packs. So that was a nice surprise, and we were having lots of fun playing through those. And her and I get pretty competitive. It's nice because we're actually like pretty even. Like
Nice.
it's. I feel like I have the edge on her, and then she just like does a reverse sweep on me in the Grand Prix, and it's just there's been a lot like 1 point differences. So that's been lots of fun with us, and can't go wrong with Mario Kart. It's just such a fun pickup game.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I've been really impressed with the map packs because I haven't played all of the Mario Karts throughout the years. You know, the ones on the Wii. I played a little bit like at a friend's house or whatnot. So a lot of these packs are like really like just fresh. They feel like brand new for me, and they look so good and they're so fun. I like the maps, specifically the ones where you go kind of reverse on like a last lap. I again, I don't know the names off my head, so I wouldn't be able to shout them out.
I think
but
they did it like for the France map, right? Like
Yeah.
they tend to, and then like the New York map, I think also does something like that. And I really like those kind of real life locations. And yeah, well, those are all
Yeah.
from Tour, which I've not played. So those all are pretty much new content for me as well. And yeah, you're right. They are very beautiful as Mario. Things
Yeah.
with Mario in the title tend to be usually.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's been lots of fun for us to play these last, couple weekends. We've been bouncing in and out of there. So that's been
Nice.
lots of fun. And what else have I been playing here? Oh yeah, I got Midnight Suns. That's been
Right.
nice.
Yeah.
I haven't talked about that on Sidequest. I haven't gotten as far into it as I was liked, but I've just like first initial thoughts. Yeah, I'm so impressed by this game. I feel like when it was like leading up to it coming out, when they had like the gameplay reveal and kind of showcasing the Abby content, I was like, okay, that's interesting, but like completely forgot about it till I got my hands on it. So again, it was just like, holy crap, this is so different from kind of what I had in my head for it being. Like I knew it was, that XCOM tactics, I guess more like Fire Emblem as well, genre type game, but like it's the type of game that I would find interesting on its own, but the fact that it has the Marvel like skin on it, it just makes it so much more interesting to me. I love just bonding with various different characters, and like the Hunter, the protagonist, I've actually like really liked that character. There's some dialogue when it's just like, okay, this is kind of cheesy a little bit,
Sure.
but it's really, I don't know. I feel like it doesn't take me out of it by any means, and the alignment factor that they have on it, where you can go down like kind of a darker path or a lighter path, I find that really interesting too, because I find in games there'll be like, for example, for this one, there'll be like dialogue options that'll give you a light option or a dark option. And right now I'm kind of gearing my character towards more of a darker side. And I feel like a lot of times in games, if you choose that dark dialogue option, it's just like, I'm going to kill you. And it's like so like extremely evil that it's like, oh, that's not exactly what I wanted to say, but I guess I got the result across. I feel like a lot of those dialogue options in the games, they don't make the character seem like unbelievable from their point of view. Like
Yeah.
it's not like they're like I said, they're not going straight evil. It's just they have a little bit more of a darker. Like one of the examples was like you could ask Blade like about his weapons or about like his like hobbies or whatnot, and like the weapons options is the darker option, and it doesn't seem like you're being like a full on evil person. And I don't know. I feel like I that was a little bit more creative on their end on how they're tackling that dialogue option, because like if you're going down a darker path, you still have to work with these people like in the whole Midnight Suns Abbey area. So yeah, I'm really loving the game. The gameplay is so fun, and initially I found it a little bit slow because I feel like I really just wanted to get to the combat. That's what I was really looking forward to, but then a couple hours in, I just want to like go on little movie dates with different characters in the Abbey or whatnot. So yeah, I'm really happy with it. Deadpool is coming out soon, isn't he, or is he already out?
in like 3 days or something like that. Which
Crazy, yeah.
Did you pick up the DLC pass?
Yeah, I got the Game Pass version, whatever it was,
Yeah,
the cool
Legendary,
green
yeah.
version. So yeah, I've been really satisfied with it. Like I said, I'm not too far in. But yeah, I'm really really liking what it is, and just the different characters that I'm coming across. Because there'll be a familiar name, but maybe they just have a different like character design than they have from like the MCU, for example, which is like I feel like that's completely fine. They don't have to steal the MCU style, but just a character like Agatha, for example, like I'm just loving all that content with her.
Nice.
And like just following her around the Abbey grounds. So yeah, I'm really really loving that game. And then the last one I'll
I want
out.
a couple questions
Sorry.
about Midnight Suns.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite character? And like that's
Yeah.
two questions. One, a favorite character in terms of the actual gameplay, like tactics, like their moveset, and then a favorite in terms of like personality, or it could be the same character for you. But I'm curious where you're at.
I'm pretty surprised that like I feel like a lot of maybe it's harsh, but like the vanilla type characters, whether it's like the Tony Starks of the world or like Captain Marvel, I'm like, okay, I don't know. I know what they are. Like I feel like maybe the Blades of the world, or someone like Magic, or like some of those other characters are just a little bit more unique, and I found them more interesting off the hop. But I just found myself like going back to some of those OGs like Captain Marvel, like Tony. Blade is still like I think my S tier. Like I just love his moveset with the like the quick attacks or whatnot, and the way that they do like the animation on like their kill moves and whatnot, it just it feels so epic. Like his
when you do
stake
the chain
ability,
and he's like slicing and jumping around the map. Oh, it's always amazing.
It feels so good, and and then like Ghost Rider too. I've started using him a little bit more, and he is a very satisfying moveset as well. But yeah, I feel like they did a good job at kind of making all the characters feel power. Like I feel like I could have a really powerful roster with basically all of the characters, and Magic, like I said, is another character that I found just interesting. Like her in general, like the way that. I don't know, like she has the sword that creates the portals, and just her overall aesthetic is really interesting. And it's a character that like I have no real memories from, I guess, from the comics, or like haven't seen her obviously in the MCU or anything like that.
Well, did you ever see New Mutants?
No, or is that the one with Anya Taylor-Joy?
Yeah, because she plays Magic, right?
Oh my gosh, that's funny. Cause I
still have not seen that movie, but actually playing Midnight Suns, I'm like, I always meant to. I don't know why I missed it somehow, but. Knowing that she plays that character, I'm like, damn, I want to go see that movie now.
I'll have to rewatch it because I definitely did see it, and I don't remember loving it.
Does she not have a sword and portals in that movie? Then I would assume.
Unfortunately, I don't even remember that much. Just completely scrubbed out of my memory. Maybe it was so bad, or maybe it was just super like mid that there's nothing really bouncing out at me. But yeah, so I feel like that's been really cool too. Just characters that I've never really heard of before, like just seeing them in this world. And like Lilith as a villain is just really, really sweet. Like I love her aesthetic so much. It's very much like Diablo vibes, and I think that's what makes her super interesting. And just the overall darker like Marvel universe that we're in this game is really, really appealing to me. So I'm really, really happy with it. And I definitely recommend it for the Marvel fans out there, the tactics fans, all that stuff. And then the last one I would shout out is just I've been playing a little bit, of course, Warhammer 3. I've been on
anything new there, or are you just kind of discovering something new, or?
I'm on like a newish campaign. The Empire is like a major fan favorite in the Warhammer community, but I've just never really played much of them. So I've been playing a Balthasar Gelt. He's like a golden wizard, such a sweet aesthetic. And I've been cleansing the vampire lands in the Empire, and it's just so satisfying because the vampires can be such a pain in the ass to deal with, but like when you actually take them back, there's like a corruption mechanic, so there'll be like vampiric corruption across the campaign map, and then as you slowly like defeat them and cleanse the lands, like you just see it like receding, and
That's
all
cool.
of those like little details I'm a sucker for. So had a shout out. I had some good victories lately, and yeah, it's just been lots of fun. Good one to just throw on, do a couple battles here and there, and then boot off. So that's just my games that I have going right now. Like you said earlier, like Arcs, I'll just save all those thoughts for when we actually do that cast.
Yeah, and then I think like you as well as everyone else on GV's just kind of waiting for Hogwarts Legacy, which is very close now.
It's fast approaching.
Probably not picking up anything new until then. So that kind of all makes sense.
Yeah. No, I don't think so. Just Midnight Suns.
Good stuff. I think also for Midnight Suns, my plan is not next week, since I'll be on with Taylor and he's not playing Midnight Suns, but the week after, I think Travis is going to come back on Sidequest and we'll talk about Deadpool. And I mean, if you want to join us, you absolutely can if you check that out. I don't know what to expect in terms of, is there new levels and a new campaign? Is it just a new character and like a couple new bosses? Don't really know what's going on there. So expect some coverage about that in the next couple weeks here on Sidequest. But with that Marvel talk, let's just go right into Marvel's Avengers. So this is kind of funny because last year, I want to say it was like May or April, around that time, me and Travis did a podcast that was the death of Marvel's Avengers, where we were just talking about where is this game at? Like, there hasn't been updates in a long time. Like, they've maybe announced some things, but like we don't know where any of it is. There's rumors of other things. What's going on? So we just like really broke it down, had a long conversation about it, and then like the day after, they did an announcement that was like, Jane Foster's coming out. Here's the day. And, you know, looking at it, it was like, okay, cool. Like they're still going strong with this thing. But in that previous podcast, we had predicted like, man, I think by the end of the summer, like this thing is just kind of gone. Like it's not releasing anything new. What's going on here? So I got to give it to them that they released Jane Foster and they went on for another few months of new content and released Bucky the Winter Soldier. But yeah, they announced just this week that that's going to be it. As of March 31st, I believe, is when they are officially done support. The game's already done in terms of content. They're not adding anything new, but they're going to do, I guess, balance patches till the end of March. And then they're going to just support the game like bug fixing, I suppose, until September of this year. But then that's it at that point. They're not doing anything else. And yeah, they're already done with adding new content. And so, you know, a bit bittersweet. I've liked the game, but I really have not gone back to it recently, especially with Bucky being the most recent character. I was kind of hoping for someone a bit more exciting. Me, you, and Taylor talked about him when that was announced, and we're like, oh, he doesn't look very good. I'm sure the moveset's like decent, but yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll go into some of the specifics here. But did you have any? I know you've not really played this, so do you have any thoughts on this when you saw this announcement?
I mean, yeah, it sucks for the people out there that have just really been, I guess, on the Avengers Discord and just really loving the content that's out there. It's always sad to see a game go. You know, it's no matter the game, it's always sad when that happens. And yeah, just like reading through the article, it was interesting. I guess it's just like more of the investor side, or like the money people. It's just like, no, it's time to focus our resources elsewhere. And I just had a chuckle too, because it was they're talking about how like, oh, like right before we just cut support, like all like the cosmetics and stuff is just gonna be free for everyone, you know, for people that want to. I well, obviously you need the copy of the game to get in there, but the people that wouldn't have wanted to spend money on that stuff, you get it all right at the tail end. And it's just like, in my mind, I'm like, I feel like that's such a small percent of people. Like if people have been playing it, and you know, if they're still going, they probably already have cosmetics and stuff like that. But I guess it's a bonus. It's not like it's a negative or anything like there. But
no, I mean that was actually something that kind of excited me, because I remember when I was playing the game and I'd look through the item shop and it's like, oh god, like I could pay $20 to get this Thor skin and it's really cool, but like I'm not going to spend, I spent $60 on it. I'm not going to go in and spend more. And so for me, that's actually exciting that, okay, cool. Like all of these, there is a ton of cool cosmetics in there, skins and different things like that like I'm definitely at some point going to jump back in there and just mess around with this stuff, maybe just for an afternoon. I still have not played Bucky, so I want to check him out. And there's even a couple like the campaigns, like the Wakanda stuff. And I forget if Spider-Man had like story content, but like I didn't really spend any time with that stuff. But like, I don't know. I still would plan to do that at some point. Me and Travis will link up and check out some of that stuff. But I think that's one. I mean, for the people who because there definitely was a few people who would have spent like a ton of money on this game to get all the skins and advancements in the, you know, weekly passes and all that stuff. So I could see them being a bit salty if they're like, man, I spent all this money and I did not need to. Now, hopefully they can think of it in the sense that like, okay, well, the fact that I was spending any money was like keeping development on this thing going to get more characters, and I was enjoying it and whatnot. But I mean, I would probably still be a bit bitter in some way, but for me, it's like just a net positive, and it's pretty cool way to go out in a way, is just like put all that stuff up for free. And I don't know if you still have to like grind in-game stuff to unlock them, or if you're just like, here, it's all free, just go in the shop now, click it, and it's in your inventory and you can immediately equip it. Not too sure how that works. And then I guess they're taking like anyone who still has, like, let's say you put $10 into the game and it's still just like on your account. They're converting that to like in-game currency that you can then use to whatever progress stuff. So you're still going to get like, you're not going to just lose that money in a way. But yeah, I guess I was really hoping for maybe. I guess it's almost like a bit sad the way it went out. I feel like the Winter Soldier thing wasn't very hype of kind of being the smaller characters, not as exciting as others. And I don't think there was any like story content with them as well. So it's a bit of a sour note to go out on. But one of the things that I thought was kind of interesting when I was reading through their article, and for anyone who's like curious on details of this, go to just their website. They just had like a huge long post about it, and then like a Q&A that honestly has like 30 questions on it that they're just like, here's exactly what's going to happen, here's how it's going to break down. I thought it was pretty nice to easily go through it. But yeah, the thing that surprised me was that they all in September, when they're done that final balance patch, they're actually going to delist the game so you can't purchase it from that point on. Which to me, that seems like a really strange decision because they're not turning off the servers. Like you can still go on and play multiplayer for, I presume, at least a couple more years. I don't know how long, maybe not even that long, honestly. But if they're not going to kill the servers on September 30th, I don't know why they would delist it. And there's also like a 12 hour long like single player campaign in that game too. So I don't know, even if like the multiplayer were shut down at some point, I still feel like keeping that up so people can play through the single player content forever seems like I guess it's a weird thing with the games of service thing where I know Overwatch did this where they delisted Overwatch 1, but that's a very different situation. I guess that was the thing that surprised me is that like, yeah, you're not going to get a ton of sales, but you'll still get some random residual sales, and presumably they've already done bug fixes and stuff and balance patches. They're not going to have to put any more work into it. So I don't know why they would delist it. Does that sound out to you, or am I just like overthinking this?
No, yeah, that doesn't make any sense because I feel like there's people that are still buying like PS2 games, let alone a game it's only 2.5 years old. And I mean, although I'm not going out of my way to get my hands on this game, it still crossed my mind. It's like, yeah, I don't know, maybe one day if it's on like a super sale and I just want to get some more Avengers fun in me, like I could see myself picking up this game. But if that's just not even an option, that's a bummer for if I was the one that wants to play it, but also just from their side, like it really doesn't make sense for them pulling it in that sense. That it really stands out.
It's strange. So yeah, I guess what I would say is, I mean, I think this game's already been on very steep discounts like many times over. But I mean, I still think like if you can pick this game up for $5-10 at some point, I'm sure when they're close to delisting it, they'll probably put it pretty low on sale. Like I would say definitely pick it up. It's still on Game Pass right now, so people can play it that way. But I mean, just if you're a big Marvel fan, big Avengers fan of those characters, like the single player campaign is totally solid. And then like, screw around multiplayer, check out some other like boss fights that they added and the different characters. Like you'll have a good time with it. It probably isn't worth the $60-80 anymore. But I don't know. I guess I want to put that out there that, yeah, it will be delisted on that date. So you have a lot of time, obviously, but for those fans, might be worth picking up just so you have it. Even if you don't want to play it immediately, you might just want to do it, and that way you have it for. Yeah. I don't know. I get Nintendo does all the time. They're not supporting their old games, and you can't get them. And I just hate that. I hate this game will essentially be lost to time after an amount of time here. It's not even that far away. So that part is a big bummer for me.
Absolutely. I guess another thing I'll say there too is another thing that sucks with this news is any like future potential characters joining the roster. Like obviously that's just dead in the water. And I was gonna ask you, Dylan, like was there a character that you were hoping for on like a future DLC or something that you might see crossover? I don't know, a character that it would just be fun fitting in the game that unfortunately you just won't ever get again because they're just ceasing it. Yeah,
the big one that was rumored and I think was even in development and probably just maybe it was even still in development until recently, until they the higher ups decided, okay, you're officially done support with this game, just move on to your next project, was She-Hulk. She was a big one, and originally when that was first announced, I didn't really care. I'm like, okay, Hulk's already in the game, like it's cool and all, but I think I'd rather have like someone with more interesting powers. But then after watching the show, like I love that character now, so I definitely would have liked that, and get some different costumes could have been really fun. But I think my two, other than that, have always been just Scarlet Witch and Doctor Strange. Just the powers of those characters. I love both of those characters in Midnight Suns. And I I think they've been lacking, unfortunately, in the Ultimate Alliance side of thing. I like Doctor Strange in the first game, but in Ultimate Alliance 3, both those characters didn't really do it for me. But even then, that's kind of like a simpler moveset. But like across the board, all these characters in Marvel's Avengers, really, really well designed, super fun to play, great movement options, different combos, tons of depth. It's just like, not a lot of great variety in the levels and bosses and just general design of the game, but like the actual characters themselves have always been super fun. So to have like that caliber of character for a Doctor Strange or a Scarlet Witch, oh my God, I would have loved that. All the different special effects you could have had, a bit of support, a bit of like offense and crowd control and all this fun stuff. Like I feel like there's a lot of potential there, and I'm still holding out. Like a Doctor Strange game, I think is like at some point they should definitely do that. That would be really cool, even if he's like the only character you play in it. But yeah, those are always the two for me. And it was nice that we finally did get Spider-Man, even if that was limited to only the PlayStation audience. But like, yeah, I think that was maybe one of the things with the DLC characters. Like, okay, Hawkeye's in the game, but then like they add Kate Bishop, and it's like somewhat of a similar moveset. And then like they added Jane Foster and stuff like this. Like, I didn't feel like they added the most exciting characters when they are adding like, I mean, they did do different movesets, but it still felt like, okay, this is pretty much like Thor's moveset. So I played Jane Foster for 20 minutes, and I'm like, okay, I got my fix here. So yeah, those would be maybe my two or three answers to that question.
Yeah. Right on. And the little like chart, I guess, that they threw in there with like the credit conversion something, whatever is going to happen when they cease develop. Like, does that make sense to you? Because I look at this, I'm like, this is like Egyptian hieroglyphics to me.
Yeah,
for someone that's never played the game.
I can't really remember. I think essentially, I'm guessing those credits are specifically like you spent $20 to get in-game credits. Like those would be those credits. Like anything that was just a currency for someone like me who just bought the game regularly, I don't think there would be any conversion that needs to happen there. Although honestly, it's been a bit, and even when I do go back in there, I'm not really like, getting nitty gritty. I'm just like screwed around checking out the new characters, so I haven't really paid too much attention to that. But I mean, I also felt like the system they had set up was actually pretty fair. Like the monthly pass, whatever it was, the season pass, whatever they call it, like you would always get the amount of credits or currency, whatever it was, in a season's pass to like pay for the next one. So you never like, and you had enough when you bought the game, like full price, to like get the initial one. So I never felt the need to buy in at any point. Plus I didn't continue playing for months and months and months like I did with something like Ghost of Tsushima, or when we still go back to Warzone every once in a while. So I didn't feel that effect. But yeah, I'm guessing those credits are more for people who bought things with real world money outside of like purchasing the game itself. Or I guess if you're on Game Pass, if you maybe just were playing it for free, quote unquote, and you want to just like get some bonus coins in there.
Okay.
Yeah, so there you go. Marvel's Avengers, some sad news, but news nonetheless. And with that, let's take our first ad break, and we'll get back and talk about Fire Emblem. Okay, we are back. Fire Emblem Engage came out just a few days ago. It is like the fucking 15th game in the series. I don't know. It's hard to keep. I just did that ranking where I went through it, all the numbers of it, but it's so hard to remember because there's like several games that were only released in Japan. There was like a remake for one of the games that was only released in Japan in like 2010. Like there's all sorts of weird stuff going on with the series, but we'll just say the next mainline game following Three Houses, even in between that, there was Three Hopes, which came out, which was like a spin-off game. But yeah, the next mainline game since Three Houses there. And yeah, like I said, I'm about 15 hours in, I believe, on chapter 10, I want to say. In terms of the spoiler thing of this, I don't feel the need to spoil any sort of story beats to the game. And I'll just be talking about some of the mechanics and stuff. So just a little fair warning out there. But before I actually share my thoughts on this, I kind of want to... It's not really a rant, because a rant has like a negative connotation, but what is just like a neutral rant? Like just there's got to be a word for that. I just can't think of it.
Just a monologue.
Yeah, a quick monologue, because so quick backstory. If you didn't listen to that ranking episode, I've played all of the North American release Fire Emblem games. A big fan of the series. I also say big fan in a bit of air quotes, because I don't love all the games. In fact, a few of them I really kind of dislike, or there's a couple other ones where I'm just like very mediocre on it. Like I didn't finish it and just don't really have too many favorable thoughts on it. But then there is a handful of games as well in the series that I do love, and is the reason I keep coming back and checking these things out. Iteration after iteration, 10 games in, I'm still like, buying these things. But there was a bit of a moment recently when I was kind of turned off a bit, and I think for me it was because it seemed like the trajectory of the games was more and more focused on the story, characters, writing, that stuff, and less innovations on the tactics side of things. Like Awakening had a bunch of new mechanics introduced, and then I feel like since then there was just nothing new that was captivating me. And so by the time Three Houses came out on the Switch back in 2019, I didn't pick it up at launch. That was the first one in like well over a decade that I didn't pick up on launch, because I was like, I don't think this series is for me anymore. And I was playing Into the Breach at the time, and it's like, this is better than any Fire Emblem I've ever played. Like, why do I need to go for Fire Emblem when I can just get a zoned in kind of tactics game? But then it was like months and months of people praising Three Houses. It's game of the year. It's people's favorite in the series. All this stuff. I'm like, okay, I caved and I bought the game, and I'm like checking it out. And I'm glad I did, because I ended up really enjoying the game. Now, I would say my love for that game is like more for the characters and the way the story goes and some of those RPG elements. The actual tactics side of it, there's a couple interesting things there, but it's not my favorite tactics game if I'm really to, narrow it down to just those two parts. And then going into Engage, like the marketing cycle for this, I was like not digging it either. I felt like the main mechanic they're trying to sell for this one is like this Engage mechanic where you have these different rings that have the spirits of like protagonists from previous Fire Emblem games. You can equip those on your characters, and they kind of similar-ish to like the Awakening pair-up system that you remember, that Kirklin, where you could like you pretty much, the game was designed to have like two characters always connected to each other. And so it kind of felt like that. It felt like maybe a bit too fan servicey. Like instead of creating like new characters and storylines, like they're just like dipping back in the well of like bringing Marth back again to like do something. And I was like, I don't know mechanically what it's going to do that's all that interesting. So I say all that because I guess what I've realized between Three Houses and Engage is that I don't feel like they are marketing these things towards me anymore. They don't really need to, honestly, because I'm out here buying this thing day one, even though I wasn't really that hyped on it from the trailers. And I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to cast the net as wide as they possibly can to bring in more and more people. Because when I was doing that ranking episode, I was kind of surprised to look at the sales for Fire Emblem. It was a lot lower than I was expecting, because I know this game's like was more niche for a while, but then Awakening was like a big point for the series where it really rose up. And then Three Houses was the biggest one in the series, but it still like is less than 4 million copies sold, which that is a lot. It is a good amount. But if you compare it to like just other big Switch games, it's like nothing. It's like a very, very small amount. And that's like the biggest one in the series. So it was really surprising for me to look at those numbers. And that's when I realized like, okay, the Switch has like well over 100 million people, and like only 3%-ish of those picked up Three Houses, the biggest game in the series, the one that I feel like everyone always talks about. Well, that's super surprising to me. So I get it. I get the marketing thing where now they're trying to like throw all these other things out there to get people in. And I think Engage is a good way to do that, where it's like, oh, all these people that love Smash Bros, check out all these Smash Bros Fire Emblem characters that are in this game, and you can play as them, and they team up with your protagonist and all this fun stuff. So that was my little bit of a rant there. I just wanted to say, like, I feel like I've been negative when it comes to like looking at what they're marketing for these things, and I'm not loving the direction. But then when I'm actually playing the game, when I'm in there, I'm enjoying it. I say all that to go into Engage finally, and I'm really liking it so far. I'm like, yeah, it's 15 hours in, and I think what it's doing for me, Kirkland, is it's finally doing some cool stuff tactically. I'm like actually into the tactics. There's some cool new mechanics here that I'm really enjoying, and I'm excited to break some of that stuff down. But I think for me, that's why I am enjoying it so much. And they've actually almost taken a step back from what they were doing on the character story side of Three Houses. I actually feel like they tried to pare that down a bit and go back to basics in a way. But I think the thing that maybe stands out to me the most is that obviously they're bringing back, essentially the setup is they're bringing back one usually protagonist from each Fire Emblem game. So I guess there's been 12 mainline games before this, but there's remakes and all this other fuzzy stuff that pumps that number up. But they're essentially taking one protagonist from each game. So you got Lucina here from Awakening, you got Ike from Path of Radiance, you got Marth from Shadow Dragon, all this stuff. And so you bring them in, and they have like these ring abilities and whatnot. So yeah, that's like the kind of the general setup of it in that way. And I think like to me, they almost went a step further where it feels like the developers in doing this and like preparing for this game, it feels like they went back to some of those older titles and like replayed them or just thought about them again and actually pulled in some things from those games too. So it's not just you're pulling in a protagonist. I feel like there's actually just mechanics and things that haven't been explored for a while that they're bringing back. So one example of this is like in between levels recently, like it's been very linear, but in this game you have like almost the Super Mario World style world map where you like have different points on the map and you can move around. After chapters, you progress along the map, and then you can go back to side quests, or you can go back and there's like new limited battles that have popped up. And that's something that Sacred Stones did, the like 8th game in the series. They haven't done that in like 15 years. They've never done it again. And I love that about that game. And they finally brought it back for this game. And it's such a random thing that they did. But I feel like unless they went back and actually played Sacred Stones again, they wouldn't have been like, oh yeah, we should try that idea again because it makes you connect with the world in a better way. And I feel like they took kind of the Path of Radiance, had a lot of diverse objectives in the map. So it's not always just kill the enemy boss. You have like maybe an escape mission or a defense mission, things like that. And I feel like they are doing a lot more of that, which I'm really enjoying. They kind of have the Awakening Paralog, and I mentioned the pair-ups, and that's kind of similar to the Engage system. They're kind of bringing that back. In Blazing Blade, you're just given like a million characters. And I feel like they're kind of doing that again, where they're giving you way more than you could possibly need, more than you could possibly connect with, but they're just like throwing a ton at the wall and letting you play with it how you want. So I like that. I like that there's a smorgasbord of not just these characters from these different games in the series, but also like certain mechanics that have not been really tried again. So that's kind of my quick recap of what I'm thinking about Engage. Is I'm really enjoying it. I think if you are someone who has not picked up Fire Emblem before, and you're a Switch owner and you want to get into the series, I actually would point you to Three Houses as a better starting point. But I think if you are a fan of the series or you're a fan of tactics games, I mean, you're probably already picking this game up. But if you haven't, I would go Engage, if like in between Three Houses and Engage, if I had to pick one in that way. Now, of course, I'm only so far into the game, I haven't beat it yet. But that would be kind of my top level thoughts. So any questions is right off the bat from all that I just said, Kirklin?
No, that's good to know that you've kind of, I don't want to say come full circle, but because I feel like you and I had like similar, I don't know, hesitations like leading into it, at least the marketing for it, like just the might be negative to say like a gimmicky thing with like bringing back the old cast, but I don't know, it seemed like one of those things where as you mentioned, like a fan servicey type system where, oh, you remember these characters, or maybe even gearing it towards people that have never played the series before, because like you said, there is plenty of people that are playing the modern Smash games and they're like, I don't know who these characters are from at all. So you know, if they have those characters kind of all in one single Fire Emblem game, that to me that does make sense, like marketing wise or whatnot. But yeah, the fact that they really seem to be rethinking or maybe doubling down on the tactics side of the game is definitely interesting for me, because I'm one that I feel like everything that the Fire Emblem brings is kind of appealing to me. I like the anime type story and the characters and all that stuff.
This sounds like a lot more anime too.
Oh yeah,
like,
okay.
In terms of some of the characters being just like really squealy and annoying weeby kind of, like, I don't know, in terms of that element of it, I feel like they are going more and more towards anime, which the games always have had that art style, but without voice acting, it's like such a disconnect. But now, I feel like more and more with each iteration they're going closer towards that.
So I feel like all those things that are in the Fire Emblem world is appealing to me. So I like it. It's if they lean one way or the other, I feel like it will work for me. Unfortunately, it's just those games are like, they are a time sink, so I'm not rushing to get into Engage, but the fact that you are 15 hours in and you are that positive on it definitely makes me makes me excited to eventually, when I get my hands on it, that I will enjoy it. And yeah, like I feel like that was the most curious thing about the game too, was how the ring system was gonna work and how all these characters, like is it just you're relying on these like super OP characters from the past for like the missions? Because like, I don't know, for myself, like going through some of the other games, it's usually like your protagonist character and like the main for the main character of whatever the title is, I feel like for a lot of the time they can just become like the super overpowered because you're bringing them on like basically all the missions, so they're getting all the XP and what not like that. But like, how do you kind of share? Yeah, like I guess just the use of those characters. Like, is it maybe for a chapter you get you get the use of Lucina, and then another one maybe you get Marth, or how does that work? Do you have them all available at all times?
Yeah, let's talk about that. That's where I wanted to start. So I'm glad you brought that up. But the emblem rings is what they're calling it. Yeah. So the way it works is you equip the a ring on a certain character, and then you'll have like that spirit version of Marth or whoever it is kind of floating behind your character, and just by default they give you just like stat boosts, like maybe +2 to Dex, +2 Strength. And it kind of depends on your character, right? So if you have a Micaiah who's a magic character, she will give you ++ to your magic stat. And, it kind of depends on what the character's origin is from their game. So you get some basic stats, and then you'll also sometimes, and this is where it gets really interesting. Micaiah is a good example here, where she gives like whatever character you have equipped to the ability to use staves. So it makes it so you can just make a hybrid class. You can just make anyone a healer, and so the mission you're given that ring. She's put on a thief character. So you have a thief character who's like kind of about stealthing around in the dark and like throwing daggers, but then can also heal. And like that is such a weird hybrid that you've never been able to do in a Fire Emblem game before. So I think that's like a really exciting part of it. And different characters like, okay, now you can use bows on this particular person, stuff like that. And then each of those emblem rings also have special abilities. So the Marth one is just incredibly overpowered, where it's just like you just do this mega slash where you do like 9 strikes for like 10 damage. So it's like pretty much just an insta kill on anyone. And almost all the bosses in this game have like 2 health bars to them. Like Three Houses has this for a lot of I don't know how far you are in Three Houses, but a lot of bosses in that game will have like multiple health bars, especially for the bigger characters, like the 2x2 like mini boss, whatever. So like even though you have that Marth overpowered ability, you still can't insta kill a boss usually because you have 2 health bars to them. So I say that quickly, but yeah. So each of these characters have different abilities. Some of them might be more supportive. Some of them might be just more massive aggression. One of them like spawns like 4 illusions around you that enemies will go in a strike as like decoys and stuff like that. And so yeah, so each mission you can only equip that ring onto one person, and you're getting more and more of these. Eventually you're going to get all 12. I don't want to spoil story stuff, but like rings come and go, I'll just say that. And so things are switching around, and I was mentioning that, like, we were talking about how it seems like maybe a bit gimmicky, a bit fan servicey. But at the same time, like, I am such a big fan of this series that at the same time, when I'm in dire straits, I'm in this really treacherous mission, and then someone comes out and they have the Lucina ring, and Lucina's like, yo, I'm here to help you out, man. Let's do this. Like, I get pretty hyped about it. It's a bit of like a end game moment, Avengers Infinity War moment, where all these like heroes from old are kind of teaming up to do this stuff. So yeah, that's kind of how that works. And then what they've added, I didn't know this was going to be a thing in the game, and it's all right, but you also have bond rings. So essentially, once you get Lucina, once you have that emblem ring, when you're back at your home base in between missions, you can spend this bond currency that you get from like characters talking together or certain interactions and other things like this. And then you can buy these bond rings, and you can buy either one or you can buy them in bulk. And essentially, these bond rings are just much weaker versions, and they just are pulling characters from the game. So there's 10 characters added from each game, and it's not like they're not fully voice acted, they're not even 3Ds. It's essentially how Smash Ultimate has like those spirits. You know how you can go to like the spirit board and buy spirits and like upgrade them on your characters? It's pretty much that, where you'll have like a Tharja bond ring. So it's just a JPEG of Tharja, and then she gives you like +2 magic, +2 luck, whatever it is. And then you can upgrade those rings, go from like bronze to platinum or something like that. So the bronze ones give you like 1 stat boost, the other ones give you higher levels. So for all the characters on your team that you don't have enough emblem rings to put on, you can put on those things so they can still get some boost. And I'm playing the game on hard, and it is very difficult so far. And I feel like it's really designed around like you should always have a ring on someone once you have enough resources to afford that kind of thing, because you just need the extra stats. Like even like the extra side missions you'll get in this game. There's the paralogs, which you can do, which you can go to get additional characters. But then there's also just like random encounters essentially on the world map that you can do, and those are incredibly difficult, right? Because those are in between main missions. I want to use those to level up my weaker characters, but then the level requirements are so fucking high. I'm trying to use my weak characters; they're getting one shot, so it can be a total mess. Where I am actually struggling at various parts in this game and really having to use that rewind feature. I went through like you get like a ton in this game. You get like 10 rewinds in a mission now, whereas in Three Houses, I think you start with like 3 and it levels up, whatever. But in this game, like in this most recent mission I did, I used all 10, and then I even I used like bonus saves and was like save scumming each turn because it was fucking hard. And it's like, I don't know, this is just a regular mission. Like I'm not on what do they call insane difficulty? Yeah, I'm not on lunatic. I'm just on hard. It's like for for people who played Fire Emblem before is how they describe it. So I'm like, I've played Fire Emblem before.
Yeah.
But it is handing my ass right back to me. So it's having to I'm really having to think about some of this stuff. So yeah, each character has the stat boosts, passives, and then like an active ability. But yeah, I think my favorite part about it is making those hybrid classes. That's a really fun thing to do. Especially like, let's say you have like a weaker, more attacking based character, but you can just put that like healer ring on them and they can just be a healer for a mission, and then they can get kind of experience that way too. And then as you use these rings, you're building bonds between like Marth and whatever character, and then those give you like that's where you can inherit like skills and things like that to get more advanced buffs on top of that. So I'm actually getting to a point now that between all the bond rings that I have, between like the different emblem rings, and now that I mentioned that there's tons of bonus characters you get in this, like I probably already have like 20 characters, and you can only use like 8 to 10 in a mission. So there's already, and like I said, chapter 10, I feel like I'm early on, and I already have so much that between that, all these different stats, who should I bond with who, it's a lot to keep track of, and I'm actually like a bit overwhelmed I don't know if it's a good way yet. I don't know if it's too complicated or if it's like just has enough depth. So I'll have to report back on how I feel exactly on that. And then just quickly, so I think one thing for me was seeing the marketing, and I was like, okay, cool, like protagonists from different games, like it seems interesting. But then I found out that it truly was only 12 characters. Like it's just one protagonist from each game. I was hoping for like maybe 3 to 4 from each game, because someone like Marth, I love Marth, but he's always the one who's going to get the light of day from his game, right? You're never going to get like the healer or this archer from that game. And so I was hoping for that because I want some more deep cut picks. But unfortunately, they didn't do that, and they're instead doing that through the bond ring system I was talking about. But that's not the same because it's just a name and a JPEG. It's not quite the same.
Yeah.
But I was saying all this. What was I leading up to? Which was So this is one thing that really bothers me. In general, if you're a service game, I get it. This is like a regular game, but it has like day 1 DLC, which is it gives you like 3 bonus emblem rings where you can get Claude, Edelgard, and Dimitri. Dimitri, I think is the name from Three Houses, like the 3 protagonists from that game. So I feel like in a way they probably felt like they needed to do that because once again, Three Houses is a lot of people's entry point for the series. So you're going into this game and they don't know who any of these characters are, so they're less interested. But let's throw in, pay an extra $40 and you can get your favorite Edelgard in here as a like bonus emblem ring. But just day 1 DLC, when I already felt like there's not enough emblem rings in this game, but like, oh, there's 4 more if you just pay an extra $40 on day 1, really kind of rubbed me the wrong way. So I didn't pick that up, and I might get convinced later on if they do bring in some really good deep cut characters, maybe I'll be persuaded, but I just felt like it was a bit scummy. And I also kind of wanted to see what the vanilla game is it's balanced around having the specific amount of emblem rings you have and stuff. So I kind of wanted to play that fresh experience before jumping into that. But yeah, you had a question there or something like that?
Well, yeah, because I was going to ask in regards, because you mentioned the tactics definitely ramping up on this game, but something that was introduced in Three Houses was that rewind feature, which like it definitely has its uses. I'm one that if my favorite character dies, I'm instantly turning off my Switch. I can't sleep with my I can't sleep that night if my favorite character dies, so I got to reload it. So bringing in the rewind, it's very handy because you don't have to do that. And at the same time, though, it's like, well, if you're like a true diehard tactics fan, maybe you don't like that. Maybe you got only one try. It's like you're playing hardcore mode or whatnot. So I was going to ask you how they handle that, because that's very much like a story implemented thing in Three Houses. Like that character that you're attached to, like that the reasoning there makes sense. But the fact that they have 10 in here, it's like, holy shit. Like,
I think it might be like 8, but it's like it is a lot. Especially I think Three Houses did start with a very low amount. You eventually get up to like maybe 5 or 6 or something. But this game, like at level 1, I don't think you upgrade it because at level 1, this thing is fucking insane.
Yeah.
And you get it way, I forget when you get in Three Houses, but it feels like way earlier on that you get it here, where you do essentially like 2 tutorial battles. And then I think by your 3rd mission, which, yeah, and those tutorial missions are like, take like 10 minutes. Like they're very short. You like already are given this thing. I am a fan of that thing now. I like it because when I talked about this in my rankings, is that there are at least 2 Fire Emblem games that I was on a tricky mission, died after 2 hours on this run because I lost like either my main character or just like a favorite character, turned the game off, and I never beat it, never went back to it, never finished it. And that kind of sucks. Like if that mechanic was in there, I would have finished those games. So I'm glad that it's there now, because to me it just takes away a lot of frustration. Or like an enemy gets a random crit, or there's just some random thing. Or so many times in Fire Emblem, an enemy will come out of the fucking nowhere, just up some staircase you didn't know existed, and then they just beeline for your healer and kill. And it's like that. All that stuff just makes me salty now. So I've adapted that. I still use the classic style where my characters do die forever, which I honestly should get rid of that at this point. Like I should just go casual mode, because triangle strategy, like that's not an option. Like you do have that casual setting where your characters come back, and I love that game and what it's doing there. So I probably should eventually just fold and give up on that, but there's still a part of me that needs to be a purist there, but I will use those rewinds all day long.
Yeah, I mean, because that's what I was gonna ask. Like, it seems like it might be too easy, but the fact that you're mentioning the difficulty on the levels definitely, because I'm pretty sure I've just played on like that hard difficulty setting before, and although there definitely is been many missions where I've spent so much time on, and then someone gets that random crit. It's not even on like a character that has to make it. It's just like happens to be my favorite. It sucks because I don't want to try it again that moment, so I'll probably come back to it in like a week or whatnot. But if you have the rewind, it ties in there, and I mean, if it's balanced well with the difficulty of the game, that's completely fine.
It's working out. So let's talk about some of these tactics things. So one thing that I love that they've added in this game is they call it the guard break feature, which, for as long as Fire Emblem has existed, there has been the weapon triangle, which is that axes beat lances, lances beat swords, swords beat axes, and that's, it's not like instant kill or anything like that, but it just makes you have a higher hit chance, probably deal more damage and stuff like that. And then the magic has always had that too, where it's like whatever fire-based magic beats like light, and light beats dark, dark beats fire. That one's always more nebulous. I forget how that one works out. But over the years, like they've added other things like the punching, like the gauntlets, whatever, in Three Houses. Now they just have like kind of a similar thing to that. It's more just like a martial. You get like a martial art scroll, and it just lets you punch. So rather than having like a gauntlet, you're just like essentially using the scroll to punch things. It's kind of strange.
Doesn't make sense.
It's a similar idea.
Yeah.
And then the thieves now use like daggers, which are not just like swords, like they are a separate weapon. And so the way that works is that like fists beat like archers and daggers. I think it's something weird like that. So there's a bit more there. And the reason they've done that is because of this guard break feature, which is that if you are attacking someone and you have type effectiveness, so let's say I have my lance and I'm attacking someone with a sword and I hit them, I will hit them into a guard break situation. Their weapon flies out of the hand and they don't get a counterattack. So this like has this whole other element of the game where it's much more important than ever to really pay attention to the type effectiveness, because if an enemy is, same thing works with the enemy. If they come up attack your guy, they can just knock your weapon out of your hand. And you just don't get a follow-up attack if they hit, which is really, really strong. So, especially as a sword, let's say I'm going to hit twice. I hit them once, hit them into guard break so they can't follow up, and then I just hit them again. Like, it is super, super strong. But yeah, also, like, if you just throw like a usual knight character with a lance who just has a ton of defense, throw them on the front lines, but then an enemy runs up with like an axe, they'll just like bust right through him pretty much. And so like you can't just have him sit there and tank all day, because the enemy will just keep hitting him and keep breaking his guard, and you'll just like never be able to hit him in that way. So that's a really cool addition. I'm really liking that so far. And then the other element to this is that each character is like, whatever their class is, whether it's like, fighter or archer, whatever it is. But then they all have a sub, I don't even know what the word, but I'll just say like an attribute, I guess. And these might just like determine like a weapon type they can use, or like a thief, for example. Like they can like pick locks and things like that. But one of them that they've added is like a backup character, and I have a few of these characters that have the backup trait. And essentially it makes it so that if they're in range of an enemy and like another one of your allies attacks that enemy, they will go in for a quick attack first. And it's pretty much always like an 80% chance to do 3 damage, and maybe that levels up. So it sounds like a very small amount, but it is so helpful and also very fun against bosses. If you surround a boss with these backup characters, you don't even have to attack the boss. You just have to move them next to the boss and then get a random 4th character to attack that boss. And now all of your backup characters, it'll stack. All 3 of them go in for this 80% chance to do 3. Which is cool because sometimes a boss has really high defense, so like maybe only magic characters because you can usually attack them. But it doesn't really matter what their defense stat is. It's always that 80% chance to do 3. So they'll just come in there, but then you can keep stacking that. In one turn, you could have 3 or 4 backup units all in range and then hit them with other attacks. And every time you do attack with someone, all 3 of those characters will do their backup attack and just stack on these hits. And it is super fun. And I feel like it's really incentivizing me to use my positioning well instead of being sloppy. That also is kind of with the guard break system. You have to really pay attention which enemies could hit my guy here. So those are like the two main additions to the tactics, I would say, that are really I mean, there's new, and I think that's exciting for me. Fire Emblem hasn't done really much new, or like they do one little addition per game, but I feel like finally they're like throwing a bunch of things at the wall at once, and that's like I really have to recalibrate how I play these games, and that's what's exciting for me.
No, yeah, that's like just I guess the step up on the triangle where like before in other games, I feel like I don't know, you can think about that, but like you could kind of just I don't know,
you can
disregard it for yeah, like you could kind of disregard it if you have like a really strong character, or like you mentioned, just a super beefy character with the high defense stat. But the fact that they can just break right through that now, like that, it forces you to really think about that. And I feel like that's also just good for learning the game. Like if you are newer to the franchise, you'll be thinking about that.
That's
whereas if you go into a later installment of the series, you'll really be focused on that, and then probably just be min-maxing even more so. So that is really cool, actually. I do like that change for sure, because it doesn't seem like it's disregarding like previous ways that they've done things, but just really add on to it to make it better. And yeah, just the more complex a strategy game can be, I feel like is just more satisfying for when you actually learn it and are able to use it properly.
Yep. Another thing they've done, which I think another Fire Emblem game has done this, but I can't remember which one, or maybe it's a setting you can turn on, but they've just taken out weapon durability. In Three Houses, is that a thing? I can't remember. I feel like it still has durability, but you can like repair your weapons, right?
Yeah, they do. They definitely have durability.
But yeah, they just straight up took out durability here, which once again, I'm cool with. Like I've played 10 Fire Emblem games that have durability, and I'm okay to not worry about that micromanaging anymore of like making sure I have an extra iron sword in my back pocket. So that's an addition I really like, because then you can just kind of really shift your weapons around between characters and just load them up with a full inventory worth of things, because they're never going to break. And it's also incentivizing you to use your stronger weapons. I think that's sometimes a thing too, is like I'm so ingrained in the series that I always try and min-max things now. So even when I'm late into a game, I'll still just use an iron sword because it does less damage, and then I can get more experience because more of my teammates can hit this one unit or something like that. And then if there's a really strong unit or a boss, then I'll whip out the killer lance and I'll use that. But like I'm never going to use all the durability on that thing. So I like this because, and I feel like they've balanced out the things too, where it's not just always use your steel sword. Like you really do want to. The differences in the weapons are more minute, so I feel like you are like incentivized to use your different ones. So I'm really liking that. I mentioned this, that Path of Radiance, one of my favorite memories of that game is just that there were so many unique objectives in that game. And this game is not doing an amazing job of it, but I feel like they are trying a bit more to have some more unique objectives, where I feel like in recent Fire Emblem games, every mission is either rout the enemy, kill everyone, or kill the boss, and then you're done. But I think they've done a couple interesting things here. And one mission in particular I really want to shout out is you're in this really bad situation in the story. Things are going really wrong. You're kind of in this really precarious situation. And then you're out in this valley. And this is where the mission takes place. So there's kind of mountains on either side. and it's just like this long valley. And to the north of them, on the north side of the map, is like the boss, and they have like 3 extra health bars. They have these 2 massive like dragons with them, and then they have like all these support units. And it's like there's no way in hell you could possibly kill any of these guys unless you had min-maxed super hard and were like optimized and probably playing on easy. Like there's no way you could fight these guys. And then at the very bottom, the south of the map, there's like a point, just a couple squares on the map, and you have to get your main character, your hero, to go to that tile and hit escape to leave the map. So you're not supposed to kill this boss. You're not supposed to rout the enemy. You just have to escape. And I really like that because Path of Radiance did that a few times, and I really enjoyed those missions because it just shakes up the formula a bit. And I like this one here, especially because, so all like to the south, there's tons of enemies there. They have emblem rings too, so they're scary. You have the enemies, the bosses, tunneling down from the north, and then there's like riders or archers and stuff up in the mountainside. And so I feel like if you just hit the button that shows like where the enemies can attack, that thing.
Yeah.
At every turn in this is like there's like 12 tiles, I feel like, in the middle of the map where you are, where it's like there's very little places I can stand right now where I'm not going to get just skewered on all 4 sides. Yeah. And then to add on to that, there's these fucking mages at the back line that are using freeze on your units, so they're just like taking away your movement for that turn. So I'm like out here trying to run away, and then they hit like my weak unit with freeze. So then I have to rally and like cover, surround that unit so they don't get hit. Meanwhile, I'm still getting flooded with units the whole time. Like it was a very, very cool level, and I hope there's more of that on the interesting objectives and things like that, and more defense missions and more of these escape missions, because it just makes you think in a totally different way. Right. And I really, really enjoyed that mission. So big shout out to some of that element of the game, and once again, hope they do more and more of that stuff. I really love that.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I didn't even really think about that. That I've just gotten so used to where it's route the enemy, kill the enemy here, and or whatever it is. But there's so many, I don't know, interesting variations of levels and objectives that you can do in a Fire Emblem setting or just a tactics setting in general. And just to jump back to you speaking upon the durability thing, I think that's definitely a healthy change, because there's been so many times where I boot into a level, I'm doing all right, and all of a sudden one of my characters, it just like breaks his whatever it is, a steel lance or something, and he has nothing on him, and it's like, wow, I prepped for this mission so well, but I forgot to give this guy a fucking sword. Are you kidding me? So that's nice that you don't really have to worry about that. I feel like I'm not sure if Fates did it. I feel like it was new in Three Houses, where they changed the like magic, where I don't think the books like actually ran out. Like you might run out of them in like the mission, but then once you like go back to the hub,
like needs to recharge
reboot.
Essentially.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Three Houses had that too.
Yeah, so
the only thing that does have durability is staves. So healing and like I get it for the more overpowered staves, like the freeze or psychic. I think is like the one that heals from range. I think heal was actually kind of a miss. I think they should have made that, because that's the one where now I'm micromanaging, where I'm like constantly burning through healing staves, and I don't really understand the reason of making that one limited. But like magic, limited durability doesn't have that limit. That I actually thought that was cool in Three Houses. I liked that limitation, and you didn't have to worry about the min-maxing of it, but it still was kind of cool the way you built your character out.
Yeah.
But I at the same time, I'm glad that they just did away with it almost completely.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
There's another very strange addition here where there's a couple like online features in this game. I'll talk about another one later, but one to mention here is it's kind of like the Dark Souls thing. It's a bit Death Stranding like in a way, where it's like if an enemy if another player in the world, another random human died in this spot, they'll like drop a spirit or something, and then if you end your turn on that spot, you'll like either get an item, you might get experience, you might get like one of the currencies in the game. So it's interesting because one, like sometimes you can just tell it's like the spot someone died is exactly like where the boss's range is. So you're like, oh yeah, this person just got absolutely destroyed by the boss. But for the most part, it's kind of just a funny little thing. And I don't know, it gives you I'm getting a lot of items. Like I feel like I'm getting like 2 weapons per mission plus like experience from going over these things. And like I said, there's no weapon durability, so I'm just getting like fucking slim lances, iron lances all day long, which I guess after a while I'll just start selling them. But it's a weird addition. I just would not have expected that Fire Emblem would ever borrow that mechanic from, a Dark Souls or something like that. But
Yeah.
that's something that's new, and it's cool because especially on that escape mission where I'm trying to run away, but I'm still like trying to make sure that I'm ending my turns on these particular tiles with certain characters.
Yeah.
It's kind of an interesting thing, so I thought that's worth shouting out. They also have what they're calling smash weapons, which I don't know if this is like supposed to be kind of like a homage to all these characters being in Smash, but essentially Smash weapons are, you'll always be, if you instigate a combat with an enemy, you'll always be last, so you'll have to make sure you can tank that hit, but then you'll hit them with this stronger weapon that will deal knockback to them. I haven't found too many uses for this yet. Like, I tried to do it where I would knock back an enemy into their teammate, but it didn't like do damage, which is weird because I think Fire Emblem's done that previously, where a character you can like shove into enemies. I don't know if you can shove them off maps. I don't really know. I guess you could shove them onto like a water tile that has like less avoidance stat or something. So I don't know. It's a thing that I don't know how. I guess the weapons are just generally stronger too. They do a good amount of damage, but that's one thing. And then kind of similar, I was mentioning that there's like the punching, the whatever the kind of, instead of the gauntlets, you have like punching.
You read a scroll and you can hit someone.
Yeah, exactly. It's very weird. But the class that they've built around this is cool because it's like the healer class can punch, which I like because some of the older Fire Emblem games, usually your healers can't, perform combat until they're like a leveled up version of that.
Yeah.
But I like that it's kind of like this hybrid class where they have these punching skills, and then they can heal at the same time. But then they also have this chain guard thing where essentially you activate chain guard. You can only do it if you have full health. And then they'll essentially just tank a hit from like an adjacent unit. So like let's say you have like a Pegasus rider or something in a very vulnerable spot from an archer. You could just use that unit, chain guard, and then it'll just eat that shot. And I think they always reduce the damage of that shot to like 3 or 4 damage, like just a negligible amount. So you can pretty much always tank it. So that's an interesting thing as well. It's kind of like this is a much more interesting class now, and especially if I go back to an older Fire Emblem game, which I did recently with Blazing Blade. It's like the healer class is very boring. Until you're level 20, you're just only using heal and just getting that experience. And it's a bit uninteresting, but I like that you can use it's like this. Like the punch of this character is very weak, but once again, combined with that backup attack mechanic, I can just go up to a boss with my very weak little healer character, and since I'll have 3 backup units who are all like throwing their axe strikes in there, they can actually be an effective use in that situation. So really cool kind of hybrid class there. I wanted to shout out.
I like how they're adding in like different ways that you can tackle situations, whereas before, I mean, as you said with the example of in previous version, like the healer is so limited what you can do, where it almost made me just not even want to take them on missions. But the fact that you can really play around some of their weaknesses by, I don't know, just like the chain block or something like that. Like that, again, that's just making it a little bit more complex and giving like the user more tools to tackle these situations. So that's really cool. That's all positive changes from what I'm hearing.
And yeah, like the position of that too, you have to use it pretty tactically, because that unit, if you put your healer so close to the unit you're trying to defend that they are in range of that enemy that's potentially going to attack your unit, they'll probably just go for your healer unit instead because they're kind of weaker. So you really have to make sure you're like using that right, or you're kind of surrounding them in units. And then I think the last thing on the kind of more tactic side of things I want to mention for now is that and I haven't gotten to this point yet, but just looking at some of the classes you can upgrade to, it seems like they've added some fresh new things here, which I'm really excited for. Like one is like you can just be like a wolf rider essentially. So that's like the thief levels up into this wolf rider where you're using like daggers on the back of this wolf, and there's like griffins now. So there's always been just like Pegasus and dragons, but now they're adding like a third variant in there. So yeah, it seems like I haven't unlocked those classes yet, but it's cool. I think that they've sometimes getting a bit stale with their classes. I think Three Houses was pretty good about adding some new fresh ones in there, especially with the gauntlet-based class. But yeah, it seems like there's some cool classes here, and especially like some of the unique characters too will have like a special upgrade. Like the nobles usually have some unique upgrade to them. But when I was just scrolling through the available classes, like there are a ton of them in there. So I'm pretty excited to mess around with some of that mechanic. And I think you can pretty easily switch around. Maybe not the exact same as Three Houses. They made that very easy. If you had like the requirements, you could just switch between classes on the fly pretty much. So we'll see how that goes. And I think at this point, let's take our second ad break, and then I have a few more notes here to get into. Okay, we are back. Let's talk a little bit of the characters here. So I feel like compared to Three Houses, where that was like to me the best they've done in the series so far in terms of characters, I think the overarching story is still just fine. I like the first half of the story more than the second half. There's a thing that happens, and I don't know where you are in that game, so I don't want to spoil it. But I think
Appreciate
just in
it.
general the characters are great there, and the way they incentivize like multiple playthroughs with like the battles between these different houses. You're like more attached to the villains as you are your heroes, which is really cool. I think this is maybe a bit of a step down. And I think it's just a Fire Emblem thing at this point is like each character has like a gimmick, right? Where like think back to Awakening, like what's that guy's name, like Kellum or something, who's like the knight who like no one ever notices him. And I think it's kind of funny. Or there's like Bernadetta in Three Houses, like very shy, so she's always like in her room. And I feel like it takes a while before you, I guess, break open the shell of these characters. Like they all just start with these gimmicks, and so far like the bond and the support conversations I've done in this game, like no one's really that captivating me on a story perspective where it's like this character likes tea, so all of their dialogue involves them talking about their favorite tea, or this guy likes to watch people. Like they're getting out of ideas too, where this one guy just like he just watches people, like he's just a people watcher. That's like his personality so far. And like I like the character in combat, he's a cool guy, but it's like he has a really, it's kind of like Pokemon nowadays. You look at some of the new Pokemon, it's like they are really strapped for ideas, aren't they? And I feel like now that there are hundreds of Fire Emblem characters in, it's like a similar thing here. So I don't know if I have a favorite yet. I like a lot of them in terms of their visual design and their class and stuff like that, but in terms of the actual characters and stuff, there isn't one that I'm attached to. They've done something really weird with Anna. Anna, of course, is like the cameo character.
Yeah.
Yeah, used to be shopkeeper in Awakening. She was finally playable. And then in Three Houses, she's playable as well, which is too bad because her stats are fucking awful in that game. Like, she's just like not usable. She's playable here very early on. You get her. But she's like 10 years old in this game. I don't know. It was a very weird choice. And she's like extra annoying because of it too. But she's the same old Anna. She's always trying to sell her wares and just like trying to make a buck. So anyway, that's kind of interesting. But this is the thing that really tripped me out. I noticed it within 5 minutes of playing this game, and it got in my head, and I don't like this choice at all. I feel like Fire Emblem always had like voice actors that I'm not too familiar with, or more low-key people, and sometimes because of that, it's like not always the best voice acting. But Kirklin, for the voice of Marth, they have picked Yuri Lowenthal, the voice of Spider-Man from Spider-Man 2018, from Ultimate Alliance 3, from Midnight Suns. So I just know this guy is Spider-Man now.
Yeah.
And now he's Marth, and like I don't like it. He's a great voice actor and all, but he sounds exactly the same. Like he's not doing anything with his voice.
Yeah.
I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
That
It's
is weird. I'm not really like good at, I feel like, catching on to a lot of maybe reoccurring like voice actors. At least
I'm
in
not
video
either,
games,
but Yuri stands out. Like
yeah.
even when I was playing Hitman and some random goon said some random line, I'm like, that's fucking Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Like, his voice stands
Peter
out so
Parker.
much for me now.
That's funny.
Yeah. But yeah, in general, I think the voice acting is good, and I think a step up for me is that I liked the role of Byleth in Three Houses. I liked the professor role. I liked, training up, doing these different classes, and I think the moveset and like the sword like whip you had was pretty cool in that game. But personality wise, like they don't really talk at all. I think they have a voice actor, but it's normally just like ooh, just like weird little noises like that. But for this, the Alir is the name of the character here. And they like have full voice acting, and it's, I don't know, not the most riveting character or anything. It's kind of annoying that it's like, once again, it's just like a very chosen one storyline where you are the divine dragon and everyone like loves you. But like now, once again, it's like now that guy likes watching people. Everyone just loves talking about how your character is the divine dragon. So every time you talk to anyone new in the game, they're like, holy shit, is that the divine dragon? And I'm like, God, can we just, I've introduced to 20 characters now. I've had enough of this. Like, can we skip past this, please? So to be honest, there is a few cutscenes I've skipped because I'm like, okay, I don't think I'm vibing with this story too much, which honestly, I'm okay with. I'm okay with where this game is. I'll do some of the support conversations for characters I'm liking, and I want to find out more. I like these Bond characters, but I don't need all this nitty gritty here. So that's one thing. But one thing that's kind of exciting too is like, for example, like Sacred Stones, one of my favorite Fire Emblem games. The first one I ever played back in like 2006 or 7 or whatever it was. and it's like Erica from that game is like the protagonist, and she's in here, and like I've not met her yet. I'm very excited for this moment because for her to like actually be in 3D, you know, not just the pixel art, and to like have a voice. I'm so curious like what the voice is gonna sound like. But like that's kind of a hype part for me. Like even just a point in the story where they always refer it's like the emblem of awakening or something like that. So obviously, if you've played that game, you probably know who they're talking about. It's like, okay, well, Lucina's about to come out here. But for other characters, like I don't always know, like it's the emblem of genealogy. And like I haven't played that Fire Emblem game, so I don't actually know who they're talking about here. But like they just mentioned the one for who's going to be Ike. So I know Ike's coming up and I'm like pretty excited to see him. But yeah, I think it's cool to see that. And then also, I guess I didn't mention this, but when you go into that, I guess I don't think I mentioned this at all, but the emblem rings, like I mentioned they have like the passives. They also have the active ability where it's just like you go into like an upgraded form for a little bit, kind of like Power Ranger style. And that's pretty cool. Like if you have the character who's like cavalry and you do that, then your character just gets like bonus movements. So you can just have like some basic unit who just gets like 20, like, 10, 12 squares of movement, which is pretty cool. But whenever you do this, like your character changes to like, they get like this white kind of almost future tech costume, and then their hair color changes to the hair color of the emblem character. So it's like if it's Lynn, they'll get like green hair, or Marth, you'll get blue hair. And so you get like this weird mix match like looks for the characters, which I'm kind of vibing with. It's actually quite fun. So
it's like your Kirby eating them and
yeah, pretty much
taking their hairstyle.
You go fully into that. I talked about the world map earlier, so shouts to that. I think this is something I was hoping for a bit more iteration from Three Houses, but in that game they introduced like the Garagmach Monastery, where in between missions you go there and you like cook your meals and you go fishing and you can go to the shops and you go to the arena, talk to your characters, all this stuff. And they have a new area. It's like it's like a little sky town where it floats around, I guess, is the thing. And you go there and you pretty much do the same things. There's a couple new things you can train, which is like you do like this timing mini game to do push-ups, or there's one where it's like to do sit-ups you just mash the controller, and I did like the lowest level difficulty one for that, and my hand almost fell off, and there's like 4 levels for it, so I'm like, I'm never doing that mini game ever again. You can like adopt animals, but like I don't know, I think this is something I was hoping for a bit more iteration from Three Houses. I wanted a bit more to do, but I feel like I'm already a bit bored of this place, other than just the conversations they would go to. They're like buying new equipment. Like I don't want to spend a ton of time here. So that's maybe one disappointment for me. One thing that I haven't actually experienced yet, but seems really cool, is the Tower of Trials. So that you access this from the Somniel, which is the name of the home base. And you can go here and you can like create maps, and you can also battle against other people online. And it sounds like you can, I guess, do other auxiliary battles on maps that other people have created. So I don't know how in-depth this is, because you only unlock it once you get to Chapter 10. And I just got to Chapter 10, so I have not unlocked it, but I haven't actually tried it yet. But it seems really cool, because I think in maybe Fates, you could build your base or something like that. But yeah, I don't think you could build fully levels. So I'm really curious to see how in-depth that is. And once again, like I was complaining that some of these games, in terms of the objectives, don't have a ton of variety. But like if people can make really cool levels, like I really want to see that, because I'm sure they can push you to the limits in terms of some stretching some of these mechanics in cool ways, or maybe even making like puzzle maps or something like that could be pretty cool. So I'm excited to check out some of that stuff.
That's a great system to have in a Fire Emblem type game, like a Mario Maker like situation, where I have seen some absolutely ridiculous Mario Maker type levels. So if they do that in Fire Emblem, I can only imagine how wild people are going to get. And like not only just making them like ridiculously hard, but just like different objectives and how creative people can really get with that. That'll be exciting to see, just the full extent.
Yeah, I remember that was, I think in Wargroove, which is an indie tactics game that I really enjoyed. I had a map creator where you could download maps, and like people would recreate maps from earlier Fire Emblem games, or people would recreate like
that's cool.
Planet Earth map that you could play on. And it's like, man, that's so cool. That I'd love for people to just recreate some classic Fire Emblem maps that you could play here with these new characters and new systems and all that. So looking forward to getting into that system. And maybe that's what I need, because some of those tough like side quests I can't do, so maybe that's where I need to go to level up my characters a bit more. So I'll report back on that. But I think my last point here is kind of a random one that I mentioned. I'm not loving the story necessarily, But there's something about this game that is just making me laugh a lot. I don't think a lot of it's intentional. Some of it might be like a character saying a funny line, but just some of the whack voice acting or some of these situations or some of these characters' reactions or things that are supposed to be like a big reveal, but it's like, well, it was very obvious that's like not a twist. Like you telegraph that one pretty big. So there's just a lot of things where I feel like I'm just cracking up all the time, which, maybe not intentional to a degree, but at the same time, it's just adding to my enjoyment. Like I'm just having a damn good time playing through this game. Just getting my Fire Emblem stuff, getting into some new stuff, and just having a goofy time with this experience. And it's just much more colorful and playful than I think Fire Emblem has been in the last few years, which is something that, I don't know, I think art style wise, at times, like the games have been a bit drab lately. But yeah, this game's like very colorful again. You're just like cool going through these very lush like mountainside towns and cool things like that. And like when you complete a mission, how like in Three Houses, it like zooms in and then you like see the battle and you can like look at the background and it's like maybe got a couple landmarks from like the actual location you are on the map. And this game, they've fully created all these things in a 3D world. So after you complete the level, you can like walk around in it and pick up some things and talk to characters, which is like, it's not amazing, but it's pretty cool. I kind of like doing that. You get more connected with some of these levels, especially if you go back there to do a side quest or something like that. So yeah, there's a lot to love in this game. And I'm really enjoying it. Kirklin, is there any other questions you have about this thing or anything you want to hear more about?
I mean, yeah, you covered more than what I was going to even ask about. So that's been really cool to hear about. And honestly, I wasn't expecting to have like as many changes in this newest installment of the Fire Emblem, but that's really refreshing and I don't know, just going forward with the series, it's nice to know that they haven't just capped, like it's not like they've done everything they really can. Like they're still innovating all these titles later and doing things that are making it interesting. It's funny that you mentioned with just the character and the different characters and their isms that they have, because that's just been something that I've noticed like forever. It's maybe I don't see the same character in like different games, but like very much so where it's like, oh, I've seen this type of character before in the Fire Emblem games, because it's just like, how many times can you do a character like that? So that's kind of funny that you are still noticing that even in this latest one, but it's tough to do. Make all these various soldiers interesting and have their own little uniqueness. I completely understand it's a tough task, but yeah, I think the biggest thing, more so even than like the Fire Emblem links and bringing back like the previous characters, is just like the new improvements to the tactics side, whether it's the guard breaks, or the what was it, the defensive one.
Yeah, just like the attributes. I guess the backup attack is what that individual skill is called.
Yeah, so like all of that, just new stuff is fascinating. Do they have like the battalions thing again that I think that was introduced in Three Houses?
No, actually, they've removed that. I guess because you have these rings and you have either an emblem ring, so it's like literally a character is with you, or it's like that, whatever, you have the bond ring, so it's like, oh, Tharja's with me. Like, I think because of that, it wouldn't have made as much sense to have both of that and a battalion in terms of like which thing are you upgrading on the characters. Which, yeah, I liked the battalion system, but I didn't love it. So I'm glad you brought that up, because I think this is maybe just a bit of a simplified version of that, and also a bit more of a personal thing. Because I like in theory, I like the element of scale that added to Three Houses, where it's like you are on these huge maps. But at the same time, I kind of like you just being part of this smaller party and like fighting like I don't know, a kind of grounded world and stuff like that. So, but I'm glad what you brought up about like kind of just the way. I guess the way this is like kind of going for it as a sequel and trying new things, because I feel like that's almost like a bit of a cycle they're on, where Awakening came out, and obviously that was a huge game for that like series. It was the best selling at the time and got a lot of new fans in, and like it tried a bunch of things too, like that pair up system, like the way you could marry different characters together and you get like different children based on who you marry. Like there was so much. Like that game was incredibly ambitious, but then I feel like the next game, Fates, like it was kind of doing the Pokemon thing, but like really it was kind of just a basic version. It didn't really elevate too much. And then going over to Echoes, which is like a remake of another Fire Emblem game. But once again, they tried a bunch of things in that game. There was a bunch of new systems. They implemented like a dungeon crawling 3D action adventure element. They like gave bows like a ton of range. Like they tried a bunch of weird things. And then going back to Three Houses, they like simplified and tried something like a bit more, I guess, safer in a way, even though the game is pretty ambitious still. But then once again, yeah, like it seems like every other game, they are going for something weird and wild and wacky and trying ideas and seeing what sticks. And then the next one, they kind of settle down and they say, okay, what worked about our previous game? Let's make like a stronger version of that. And then the next one, once again, is them trying some crazier, wackier ideas. So I like I guess I like those ones a bit more, perhaps. Maybe that's my thing. But I'm saying all this. I do love Three Houses for what it is. It's just, yeah, I think I've always come to Fire Emblem for the tactics. And that's not why I stayed with Three Houses, but I'm staying in this one because of the tactics. So
yeah. I mean, out of everything, you definitely got me want to pick up Fire Emblem again. It's just, yeah, to go back to those hard levels that I probably put down, and I probably last time I played Fire Emblem got really pissed off on a specific level, so maybe it's time to go back on there and complete it.
Yeah, I'm excited to report back on this game once I'm further in. I don't think I'm gonna go ham on it. I went pretty hard over this weekend trying to play a lot, but I think I'm just gonna take my time with it and just enjoy my time. And I'll also be playing Midnight Suns pretty soon here, again, with the Deadpool DLC and all that stuff. So, yeah, I'm really enjoying this game, though. Thank you for joining me. This was a lot of fun to talk about this thing. I couldn't picture, anyone else better to have this conversation with. And next week, we'll be back with myself and Taylor talking about some Xbox, talking about some Redfall. Very excited for that. Nice. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.